I will see you then.
I will be here. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. We're going to move on with an update from the court administration. Mr. Green is here with, looks like several people, so I am wait anxiously for your report, Mr. Green.
Oh, I'm excited. It's the 14th month I've been here talking about this, so hey, let's do it again. Before I start, I just want to clarify some information at the last meeting that we had, and we got in the weeds about the revenue that the Juvenile Center generates. It's a not-profit. I just want to make sure they understand that it's a not-profit. There is no program in this county that profits. We're all, at a deficit. We're providing services for people that need to happen, and that's what we're doing at the Juvenile Center. But the unique thing about the Juvenile Center is that we're the only program that has the ability to generate revenue to offset the county contribution. So that's the difference. And that's where I was going the last time I was here. And then there were some assertions that we got about profits and things like that. So I just want to make sure I'm clear on that before I go forward here. Like I said,
Explanation.
Go ahead, Mr. What's that?
I appreciate your explanation.
Thank you, sir. So, like you said, I'm here with some gentlemen here to my right who are a lot smarter than me and have a lot more information to provide this council to educate you on our Juvenile Justice Center and how vital our center is. And it's paramount that we have this center because, like I said, we're providing that service for families of children in this jurisdiction. And I said before, if we don't have this center, it's going to be catastrophic to this county on many different levels. And these gentlemen will explain that to you in depth, that it's not just here, it's a statewide crisis that's going on. But we have a viable center, and why aren't we utilizing it to our capacity? And that's the problem I have. And I take it a little personal because I have my career, blood, sweat, and tears into that center for the last 22 years that I've been in this county in different capacities, okay? So I do take it a little personal because that is my baby, and they will tell you that is my baby, that center. I was here when we expanded that center in 2010 to add 2 pods. I worked hand in hand with the architects in that center. So I do take it a little personal. So when I sound like I take it a little personal, it is because I do. Because I'm passionate of helping these kids. And I think every branch of government in this county should be working together to make sure this center is viable. And that's how I feel. And anyone who feels different than that, I will challenge you. Because we need this center. If we don't, it's going to affect not just the courts, it's going to affect the sheriff's department, okay? It's going to affect children and youth. It's going to affect so many other entities in this county that you're not even seeing the revenue that we're going to have to pay. Lehigh County is calling us right now saying they would pay $1,000 a day to have kids in that center. And they made that call to Mr. Billman. He had a conversation with their director because they don't have their center right now. He said, and it might have been tongue in cheek, but he said, we will pay $1,000 a day. Did he not, Mr. Billman? So there is a need out there. I gave you a flyer. You can see what's happening in the state. That's going to be on one of the PowerPoints that Mr. Garvey, our chief juvenile probation officer, is going to explain to you what's going on. And again, I've been talking about this for 14 months, and we're still here. We're still here paying people $16.46 an hour to go in our 24/7 facility when they can go to Wawa down the bottom of the hill and make $15 an hour. The manager's making $22 an hour. What are we doing? We have an obligation here, all of us, not just me, not just the courts, not just the administrative juvenile judge, not just the president judge. All of you in council have an obligation as well to help these children. We're going to break up these families if we don't do something. Because right now, there's probation officers who are sending kids out of state. And Mr. Garvey's going to get to on that information as well and let you know. We have interested justice children, okay? These are the ones I told you about numerous times. They're charged with felony offenses. They're charged as adults. We don't want to house them in our prison. We take them in the juvenile center because it's a less restrictive area. And the state wants us to do that. Mr. Garvey will touch on that as well. There are jurisdiction probation officers who don't have places to take these children, and they're housing them in hotel rooms. They have sheriffs, deputies outside of hotel rooms, keeping them there from any time from 1 day up to 2 months in a hotel room. This is ridiculous. We have a center right down the street that I invite each and every one of you to go to and see what you have there. I've told you numerous times, I'm proud of this facility. You should be proud of this facility as well. But if you don't help us, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I'm asking again for the 14th month. Help us out. So with that being said, I am going to ask Mr. Spadoni, your solicitor, for a legal opinion to provide you. And what I want him to know here is this. This council approved $15 million for Graysdale. $5 million of that was for staff retention, staff bonuses, staff raises. $5 million. Those employees are union employees at Graysdale. So are the employees at the juvenile center. Why can't you approve that for us? I'd like your legal opinion, sir. Mr. Garfredo.
Go ahead.
In your opinion, Mr. Green, do you think bonuses would be more impactful than salary increases?
No, salary increases, of course, would be
Ideal.
what we need and ideal, Mr. Garfredo, but I'm willing to try anything at this point. You know,
I just wanna
and
know
that's where I'm
At the end of
at.
the day, what your
Yeah.
ideal resolution to this would be.
But when you approved that $5 million, what did that encompass? Okay, what did that encompass with those staff raises, staff bonuses, staff retention? I'd like to know that. And again, they were union employees at Graysdale that money was allocated for. These are union employees at the juvenile center. Why can we not do something similar? See, that's what I'm saying. I'm being treated differently. The courts are being treated differently here. And I don't like it. I don't like it because I think the fix is in on this union thing because we're still waiting for an arbitrator there. Still. I haven't got an update from Mr. Irwin on that front, so we're still in a holding pattern. That's unacceptable to me. That's unacceptable to me. So I'm asking council to act here. So Mr. Spadoni, I respectfully ask you to do that, provide that to council, and if somebody could get back to me and let me know if we could put this on a later agenda to vote on this.
I think that particular, if my memory serves me correct, members of council, please correct me on this. That was money that was given in the CARES package that Mr. McClure designated for Graysdale.
But
Am I wrong with that?
It was
Those
one
of
of
us
the
that were here?
funding
You're not.
packages, but I'm not sure. Was it CARES or Rescue? I think it was
One of the
CARES.
two. It was one of the two programs. Am I correct? CARES or Rescue?
Yeah. It was one of the two.
Yeah, I believe it was both, as a matter of fact, but my question would be, are there any funds left from that? I
That's
think
the magical
That's what
question.
needs to be determined.
Okay.
I want to ask Mr. Green a question. You sort of alluded to it, and I don't know, so I'm asking you.
Yes, sir.
Or one of you can answer. When we did the Graysdale bonuses, I believe the union signed off on them. They were saying, go ahead, we're okay, go ahead and do it. And do you know, and I know you guys are still working over there with the union, would your union, do you think, I'm asking your opinion, would the union sign off on bonuses if in fact there were money available to give them bonuses?
I can't answer that, Mr. Ekman, I really
Okay.
can't.
All right.
I don't
I'm
know
just-
what's going on with the union. It's really not my business to know what's going on with the union.
negotiate that.
But I just know.
Well, and you know our position, we're precarious
Right.
in all of this too.
But what I'm saying, I'm not asking about the negotiations. I'm asking that this council approve that money for those union employees. Why can't you do the same for the union employees who are in the same ASME unit? They're just Graysdale, these ones are just under the courts.
Mr. Garofredo?
I'm not really asking a question, but I'm more commenting. I hear what you're saying, and, you know, I'm new to this, and I'm not a union guy. I'm a non-union contractor, so I don't really know the ins and outs of what it's like to be in the union. But as far as the bonus goes, like, yeah, I understand something's gonna help, anything could help. But my fear is, and I'm sure you think the same thing, that the people are gonna take these bonuses, and you're gonna be facing the same problem next year and the year after that. My question is, who needs to have this conversation? Who needs to say, hey, $16 an hour doesn't buy a whole lot these days, and we're not in the same stratosphere. And I'm not the union employee being represented by this union, but do you talk to those employees? Do they talk to their union? Where is this conversation going on there? Because I hear your frustration, Mr. Green.
Yeah.
I do. We sit here and we listen. We're not in where you are every day dealing with the things you're dealing with, so you know it much more intimately than we do. And we're trying to get the feel, you know, once a month when you come in here for courts and corrections.
Right.
This seems like a bigger issue, and like we're trying to do a pay study, and we're trying to get this pay study to cover all the things we want to cover, and that's already going in a direction, in my opinion, that is not favorable for the problem that you're facing today. So I would love to have a speedy resolution to this, but what are our options as far as increasing pay for these people? Because I'm not seeing a whole lot of, it feels like our hands are tied to really solve the problem. So I'm open to solutions, I'm open to suggestions from other members of the council, but this seems like unless the pay study drastically increases those wages, you're still gonna be faced with the same problem, even if they get a bonus, this
No,
year.
I agree with you. I agree with you, and you're right.
It's my frustrations too, because I think, we just,
the pay.
like you said, how many beds do you have in that juvenile justice center?
84,
How many?
84.
84. Yeah, I think every single one of those beds should be filled, and if they're not filled, we should be trying to do whatever we can to fill it. And the fact that we're filling, what, less than half right now, is that what you're saying?
Less than half. You're going to get that information. We're going to give it to you.
Yeah, that's
see it.
not acceptable. I agree with everything you're saying, but I
Yeah.
just don't know how to do what we need to do to make that better, and I would love
And-
to.
And the thing is if you have, and I did some math with our financial fiscal officer, if we had 5 more positions, okay, 5 positions of youth care workers, you hired them, that would cost, with fringe benefits and salaries, $60,000, so $300,000. Those 5, if we have a full complement of children that you had in that pod, out of county revenue, you can bring in $1.27 million.
And that's at today's rates of,
That's at today's rate at $295, but we're looking
no, I'm
to,
talking about the salary of the employee that you would be
yes,
staffing.
yes, right now.
So let's say. and I'm
No,
gonna
I think it was
figures-
at that 19, right?
It would be at a higher.
It was at that
at a higher
19,
salary?
yeah, it was at that 20, right around $20. If you brought them in at $20, 5 staff members, it'd be about $300,000. And Badway has it, and you're gonna receive this PowerPoint, $300,000. But out of county revenue potential to offset that county contribution would be $1.275 million.
And am I getting this correctly? The operational costs and everything is very front-heavy on the juvenile justice center.
They're
so
fixed.
Very expensive in the first few beds, but as you increase the vacancies or you decrease the vacancies, it becomes more and more, I don't want to use the word profitable, but makes more fiscal sense, correct?
Right.
So it's
You-
almost,
you-
we're not doing our jobs here as a county if we aren't fully utilizing the 80-some beds that are clearly in high demand.
It's fiscally irresponsible.
I agree. Thank you.
That's what it is to me.
Mr. Lott?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Green. So this is a statewide recruiting in detention centers, correct? This is
It's a
not-
statewide problem,
this is
yes.
Not just a county, this is.
No, it's not just the county. And you're going to get that information, you'll see that, Mr. Lott, but it definitely is statewide.
You know, I understand the responsibility of our county to our county citizens and to our neighboring counties.
Yes,
But what I was trying to establish and understand was what is the right size for this facility? being that we're having a hard time recruiting, what is the right size? This facility is going to cost us money. It's just, that's the nature of the game.
Every program costs money, though.
We're given a service. And I
Right.
understand the more people we have, the more it offsets that cost. I mean, it costs us more to house our local than it does local children than out-of-county children. I get that. So that kind of helps offset the cost. That's really what I was trying to figure in my own head, right sizing, what in my head this facility should look like. A couple things that you stated that alarmed me last time was, we could bring people from the whole Northeast. I don't know, to offset our cost, and I don't know if that concerned me, because I'm worried about Northampton County and our neighbors.
But we always-
I'm not looking to, excuse me.
No, I
I'm not
understand.
looking to create a detention center that covers the Northeast. I just don't think that's what our county tax, because it does. I guess my next question would be, those out of county, do they cover at least their own costs?
Yes.
And so they throw in and help offset some of our costs, but
Yes.
in the end run. So that's really
You're
what I
going to
was,
see all that, Mr. Lott.
that's
You're going to see all
what I
that.
was really trying to
Yeah,
get to last time we had spoke.
right. And I realize that, and that's why I want to give you this information so you can have that for your own edification.
Thank you.
That's why I want to give you this information that you're going to see right now. Okay?
Yep.
All right.
Can we see it?
Anybody else got any
Yes.
questions, Tara?
No. My screen is dark.
Oh, all of our
The
screens are
screen went
down.
dark.
All the screens went dark. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We don't have the presentation now.
All right, you're going to do the presentation?
I have a question.
While you're doing that, Mr. Green, Ms. Varyu Hefner has a
I'll just
question
help
for you.
set you up for the presentation, because
Yeah, Mr. Badway Bullis is our core fiscal
I was
officer.
going
He's
to
going to
ask
come
a
up.
specific question to him is, do we charge the same fee to our own?
You have to come on over and identify yourself, please.
Do we charge the same fee to our own as we do from someone from another county? Or are
we
there
don't-
different
yeah.
fees for kids from different counties?
All right, first of all, my name is Badway Bolus.
you for doing
Okay. We don't charge our own county a fee for the children that are here. It doesn't work that way.
So
We
people who
fund the
send from
facility,
outs-
we staff it, and we accept children into the facility.
None of us
There's
do.
no bill that goes to Northampton County.
Okay, so then what's a per diem for a kid from another county?
Well, we'll charge another county $290 a day,
280, did you say?
$290.
I was on the Courts and Corrections Committee this week and the Human Services, and we talked about this at length. I talked to Mr. Green briefly yesterday. He said you were coming to talk to Mr. Garvey as well. There are only 8 or 9 of these facilities left in the state.
Yes.
So we're missing an opportunity if we don't get staffing here. And I hear that our own kids come first, obviously, and then our bed or our census comes first, and then we take in from other places. But there's a need. Just like we don't have a mental health hospital for prisoners from Northampton County, we have to send them to Norristown. They're building extra beds at Norristown. So it's a give and take. So I understand what Mr. Lott's saying. It's not about worrying about getting dollars from anywhere else first, but, we have the facility, and we need to make use of the facility, and we need to support it in its fullest. So I'm interested to hear what you have to say.
All right,
You're recognized, Mr. Heckman.
That's why I wanted to, that's why I said, may I?
Like that, Kevin?
Wait, is there we were talking about, it was brought up about how much people would offer, let's say, unofficially. Is there an upper limit by any state statute on what we can charge another county?
yeah, well, what happens is every year or 2 years, we have to submit budget documentation forms, per diem rate documentation forms. So the state will only fund up to a certain amount.
Mike was off.
So the current rate right now, I believe, is $315
So that's the upper limit the state.
for
will
our
reimburse.
facility, yes.
But if,
Anything above that we charge, there's no reimbursement to the home county.
to the home county, but.
They'd have to pay for it. with their-
I guess the point of my question is, all right, there's an upper limit reimbursement, like a lot of areas in the county, of what the state will reimburse the home county for,
Yes.
for the child. But if the county wants to, if they're willing to, they can spend any amount above that. They'll only get reimbursed up to 315.
Correct.
All right, and you're allowed to take that money. You're allowed to charge that.
That's correct, yes.
Okay.
And we're actually in the process of reworking those forms.
Yeah.
To request a higher rate. And that'll be for fiscal year 23, 24, beginning July 1st.
That's at the request of Mr. McClure, correct?
Yes.
right,
Yeah,
so
Mr. McClure
explain
did
that.
bring that up, yes.
What exactly are you saying?
No, to
Please, come up and explain.
rework those forms to increase the rate, that was at the request of the county executive. He talked a bad way about that.
When was that?
Well, when we were submitting contracts for him to sign, he felt that we should be charging a higher per diem rate than what we were charging. He didn't think $290 was an adequate amount.
When was this conversation?
It was probably in the past 6 months, I would say. And I told him at that time that we'd have to wait till July 1st to get approval from the state for a higher per diem rate.
So in the past few months, a discussion was had about increasing the money going into the juvenile center,
Yes.
and
And it was also in the middle of a contract year, so the contracts expired June 30th, so we wouldn't be able to do that until July 1st.
so we're now in the process of doing a new contract.
Yes, so come July 1st,
gonna
each
shoot-
contract that we have with the different counties will be at a higher per diem rate.
Okay,
17 different contracts.
17 different districts?
Yes,
17 different contracts.
so we do, each county has their own contract.
Any questions on that before we move? I want to make sure we were clear that this discussion was going on, and I'm glad the council's aware, because we've been under the impression that, if I'm wrong, that we were only charging below the rate. And if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Cusack was been pushing that we increase that for the last year. Am I wrong, John? Okay. For the record, I want to make sure we're being left out in this conversation. That just can't.
Yeah, and the rate will be going up July 1st.
Thank you. All right. If not, let's move on to what you would like to do, your presentation.
All right, yeah,
I see
so
we got expenditures and everything else.
Yeah, I'm just going to talk about expenditures, revenues, out-of-county revenue. So currently for 2023, we're approved for $9.2 million. But within that $9.2 million is $1.35 million that's set aside for placing children in other facilities outside of Northampton County, and also for providing in-home services. Okay? And then the remaining $7.8 or $7.9 million is funding for the staff, operations, and debt service of the Juvenile Justice Center facility. Within that 7.8 or 7.9 is 5.5 million for staff and benefits, almost 2 million for operating costs, and 350,000 for debt service. All right? Moving over to revenues now. So the revenues that we generate are $5.7 million. The bulk of it is from the state through Act 148, $3.7 million. And then we also have some federal funding, Title IV funding, school lunch program, parental payments, Social Security, and then miscellaneous. And then we also have a large portion, which is from the sale of bed space to other counties, which is the $1,615,000. All right?
Now, back up on that a little.
Yes.
Now, I'm looking at this. Where's your cost of feeding these folks at?
Yeah, that's within the operating budget, and it's very minimal, actually. It probably costs about $2 to $3 a day on average to feed a child.
You got growing kids there, and that's all it's costing you?
Yeah, yeah. And the more kids we have in the facility, the average cost goes down.
That's horrible.
Wow, I wish that worked with mine.
We can't associate
Okay,
that with that.
go ahead. Go ahead. Yes, Sarah.
So when Mr. Green mentioned that if we,
You want to speak in the mic a little louder? Thank you, dear.
sure. So when Mr. Green mentioned that if we increased access to bed space from
Yes.
other counties, that we would increase by 1.2, is that in addition to the 1.6 here, so that it would be 2.8?
Yes, we could theoretically budget 2.8 million if we could fill fill those
Okay.
beds.
Yeah, because I did run into Phil Armstrong today, and he did tell me that he was looking for bed space, but we have none. And I was like, wow.
Yeah, they call almost every day, and we have
He did
to
say that.
we have to refuse them every day.
But I just find it really alarming that a kid is being detained in a hotel room.
Staffing and retention seems to be the issue.
Yeah.
But, okay, so I just want to clarify this for myself. So staffing and retention is a problem. You could be making, increasing the budget by the sale of the beds. Could you be able to use that money for salaries? Or is that a different bucket?
That money goes into the general fund.
Okay, so that's a different bucket, right? So even if you did increase revenue by the sale of the beds, you couldn't use that for that? Okay, just checking.
It would help when we're trying to submit a budget saying that we're bringing in this additional money. Can it be used to provide raises or a higher starting salary?
Well, can it
So,
be
yes.
used, can you use that bucket of money for other things that you would otherwise be able to take salary money out of? Like if you had 3 buckets and one of them sale of a bed space and you have an overflow in that, could you put it in another bucket and take it out of that bucket?
Well, the increased revenue, what it would do, it would decrease the county share. So basically now you have more county share available to put towards salaries.
So that's what I'm getting at. So that would be
Yes.
the bucket?
Yes.
Okay, got it. But at the same time, you have that bucket, if you increase if the county share,
You okay?
you're still waiting for an arbitrator. And that's an issue with increasing the wages, or the salaries, is that correct?
Yes.
So until you get an arbitrator, we're going to keep having this conversation.
Until we get
Wow.
help.
The other
What-
option is to come,
But what is the help that you're,
well,
I don't know.
I-
I asked Mr. Spinoni for his legal opinion. I don't know what that.
yeah, it's going to take him a moment to get that. I get that,
No,
but I'm just trying.
he's very studious. He'll get that in the next.
Well, you're
couple
not going to
days.
have it today, right?
Today. but
Not
what I'm
today,
saying
but
is-
he'll get it to us, yeah.
This is, okay, I'm talking about the sides. We all know that my opinion is the fix is in with the union and they are stalling. I don't know what's going on, but they are stalling, okay? They're not, I've been here for 14 months. Let me repeat that, 14 months.
Yeah.
And I was told they were going to the table. And every time I make contact, it's excuse after excuse after excuse. Mr. Lott, you are a union guy. Is this normal? 14 months?
I am a private sector union guy.
Listen,
I have no idea how public sector.
But is this normal though?
Because
This is
in
not
the
normal.
private sector, we have negotiations and we usually work them out and get it fixed. I have no idea why the arbitrator isn't there. But that being said, wherever they settle, I imagine they're going to get back paid from the time the contract was
That
up.
doesn't help us right now. though. That's just not.
No, but that needs to be said, though. I mean, these people are going to get the raise when they come to negotiations. The members did vote the contract down, I believe, that was offered to them. I don't want to, it's not my place
And I
to.
don't even know if that's true. You know, I don't even know if that's
Well,
true.
I thought I heard that at
No,
one
I
of these
thought I did
meetings,
too.
but.
No, I did hear that, but I'm hearing things that might not even be true. I don't even know if there was an actual vote, so I don't even know, so. But let's move on. I
Yeah,
don't
we
wanna
have to
hold
be
bad
careful
on-
negotiating on.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
so I don't wanna keep going.
What-
I understand.
yeah, one option could be basically coming before council and asking to upgrade the positions. That's an option.
That's a very good option.
Yes.
That's interesting.
Mr. Heckman wants to ask you a question
Okay.
as we try to get through this.
I'm sorry. It's about, because you're the money guy, and let's be honest. I remember there's this famous sports writer who said the answer to your top 3 questions are money, money, and money. So the thing is there the state civil service, and this is just, I can't remember because we have the different job classifications. the money we pay somebody walking in the door now, 16,000, is that what the amount, the actual, is that the amount reimbursable from the state, or there is no reimbursement from the state for?
No, the state, that doesn't factor into the
Yeah,
reimbursement at
because
all.
unlike,
The state won't cut that off, no.
so unlike children and youth, I mean.
Yes, they're set to a specific pay scale.
And you're not,
No,
if I
we're
remember
not.
correctly.
No.
So everything that gets paid to you is county dollars. County money, general fund.
It's county money gets put out and then we submit reimbursement reports to the
Okay,
state and they
yeah.
reimburse us, certain percentages.
All right, I guess my question then would refine to, what do you get reimbursed approximately per person?
Okay,
What percent, is that going to be in your,
well, we don't submit costs based on per person, we submit total costs. And the costs that are allocated to detention, those get reimbursed at 50%.
okay.
Costs
so-
that are
so
allocated to
it's-
treatment could
it's
be
put
from
in a
60
pot.
to 80%.
Okay, so it's put in a pot. Yeah, you just mentioned, I know different divisions in human
Yes.
services. You know, I've known you and we've talked in the past.
Yeah.
Certain, like, I think mental health, it's 100% reimbursement.
Adoption assistance, I think, is 100%.
What's that?
Adoption.
Yeah, and children and youth, I mean,
children and
some of
youth.
them were 90-10.
Emergency shelters are 90%.
And that's where I was going with my question. When it comes to the Juvenile Justice Center, what your reimbursement rate is?
Yeah, it ranges from 50% to 80%.
Okay, all right, so that clarifies that, because, I'm trying to catch up on where we're at. Sometimes things shift in the state. Now, the other thing would be, Graysdale would always complain in the past, actually when they made a lot of money, that it would always go into the general fund at the end of the year, and they couldn't keep it to, now, if you were to make more money, and I'm just throwing this out there, than you actually need in a year to run your facility, at the end of the year, that would go into the
It would
general
go back to
fund.
general fund, yes.
Unless something was passed, like it was for Graysdale, that you could keep the money as long as you accounted for it as a special revenue thing.
That's
Thank you,
correct,
Mr.
yes.
Kusick. He
Yeah.
fills in the blanks on fiscal. So the thing is that something down the road that you're thinking of would be helpful to you, to have a special revenue fund if you get to the point where you have more money coming in than you need? But is that something that's out there now?
That would be something to think about. I
right.
mean,
And I know, and I
I
don't
can't
want to.
see us ever turning a profit. It's not set up to turn a profit, you know.
Well, no, and neither was great, and that, we used to have these debates all the time with Graysdale and discussions. And I think you're making a point, Mr. Green made it. We're in the people business. A lot of what we do, you can look at yours, you can look at anybody's. Staff and pay and benefits. That's our expense. I mean, we have a lot of window dressing in the county, but at the end of the day, it's all about the people that work here and the service they provide.
Provide a service.
We provide a service.
It's not
That's our level.
Amazon, it's
The
not
state made
Walmart, it's not about
sure-
profits.
The state made sure that we'll hand out the big checks, you take care of the nitty-gritty services.
Yes.
And so, I mean, the idea of profit, though, I hate that word because we don't really make any profit. Anything that, if you filled your beds tomorrow, or next week, let's be more realistic. If you filled your beds next week and you got more money in than you needed in your budget to run the place, at the end of the year, that rolls into the general fund.
Correct.
So it's hard to call it a profit. It's not a profit. It's just, we're not allowed to make a profit.
It would just offset other county costs.
If we have more revenue than expenses, it stays within the county's
Stays
funding.
within the county and it would offset the other budgets.
I just, the term, I really, just from me, because believe me, that has come up, it's not just now, over the years, many, many times with council members and even people coming in about our profit. We don't have profit. We might have overage, we might have underage, we might, that type of thing. But it all ends up staying in Northampton County.
Correct.
And that's just, I just wanted to get that clear. And I'm going to back off now, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody on this side? Tara?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All right, you can move on.
It's all
Next
proceeding.
page.
Okay. So the difference between the revenues and the expenditures is the county contribution, which for 2023 is budgeted at 3.5 million. All right, so included within that amount, again, is funding for children that get sent to other facilities and also for services that are provided in the home. Okay? Okay, so out-of-county revenue. This is the revenue that's generated from the sale of unused bed space to neighboring counties. Again, this revenue offsets the county contribution needed to balance the expenditures and revenues. And we have contracts with 16 different counties and at a per diem rate of $290. All right, and then this is a chart of the revenues over the past 5 years. As you can see, the best year we had was $2.5 million in 2019. That actually was at a per diem rate, I believe, back then of $270 a day, $270. So, and then you see you see the big drop in 2022, and that's basically due to the lack of staff. All right?
Yeah, I was going to say, could you pair this with staffing, like what your levels were at different times? I mean, that affected the numbers.
We've never been full. We've never been fully staffed, but it's never been anything like this at this level. So, you know, we may have had 15 vacancies, but never 39 vacancies, it says right now. We have 39 out of 57 are unfilled. So for this year, if things stay the way they are, we're probably only going to bring in $600,000 in revenue. And again, it's due to not having the staff to accept children. There's demand for the service, but we just don't have the ability to take in children. All right, and then, so this is what Mr. Green was stating. So if to staff a pod of 12 children, we need 5 youth care workers, 2 for first shift, 2 for second shift, and 1 for night shift. If you increase the rate to $20 an hour, it would come out to $300,000 for a year. If we sell all those beds, which we could, we would generate almost $1.3 million. So it's $1 million excess revenue over expenditures.
Question.
Oh, yeah, that's what you're saying.
You're looking at filling these beds. Aren't these people, you want these people to have degrees?
They have to have a degree.
Yes, they have to have a 2-year degree.
That's a standard by
That's in the regulations, yeah.
Department of Public Welfare.
I just wanted to make sure that
Yes.
I was correct in saying that they have to have degrees.
Yeah,
They have to have 60 college
60
credits,
credits. That's what they have to have.
and that's in the license and
So
regulations.
they didn't have to graduate, but they,
No, they have to have at least 60 college credits or care sheets.
but most of them probably graduated.
Some of them, yeah.
I would say the majority of them do,
Majority
yeah.
of them have.
Yeah.
Do you, since they're kibitzing over there, do you offer reimbursement for people to get educated while they're
Yeah,
working for you?
the county offers a tuition reimbursement program, so it falls within the whole county program. And I believe it's $1,000 for bachelor's and
$2,000
for graduate level, yeah.
And do you have many master's level caseworkers, or do they generally move up?
Yeah, we have some therapists.
The therapists are all master's level, but they don't work for Northampton County.
Oh, yeah.
They work for outside providers.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Lott has a question.
Thank you.
Yes.
Listening to this for the last 14 months,
I know,
we're hearing this is a statewide problem. We're also hearing the reason we can't fill our beds is because we don't have the staff to do it. Is because there's only one reason I hear from, is because of the wages being paid. That is the reason we can't fill. Is that the reason the state can't fill? It's a state shortage. Is every county underpaying or, is
There's only
the
9
wages, I thought we had
I think there's only
nine of them, or they, I guess what I'm getting at is, where do we fall amongst those other 9 facilities, number one? Because it's a statewide problem, so is it a statewide wage problem, or is there other issues? I imagine it's very
I
stressful
believe it's a statewide problem because of wages. I mean, I don't know for sure what's going on in other counties, but I know in the past, we've never had to compete with Wawa or McDonald's paying $15 an hour.
Yeah.
Or Amazon now.
Or Amazon, we've never had those issues, so this is something new.
Just to interrupt you for a second, I believe I have my juvenile justice chief here. Would you step up to the microphone? Because I do believe you have some information on the state side of why we're suffering with.
He's gonna
yeah.
present, he has a presentation as well.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Billman's next.
All right.
With all due respect, Mr. Billman's next on the slide.
Okay.
And then Mr. Garvey's gonna go.
Okay.
There's an order to this. We
What-
just
what-
got to get through it.
So these questions, if these questions will be answered later, that's fine. You know, just kick it down the road. No, I mean, really, I don't need to hold up more if they're going to be answered later. One last question I had, there's 17 contracts, 17 counties that we take people in. Are those all in the state or are some of those out of state?
No, they're all within the state.
Pennsylvania?
Yeah, Pennsylvania
17.
counties.
So that's all our contracts are in-state contracts.
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Billman will speak some more then.
I'm just pressing down.
Yep.
All right.
Mr. Billman's next. Looking kind of sharp there today, fella. Must have taken lessons from me.
Thank you. Good evening, council. How are you doing today? I just wanted to touch on what's going on at our county currently in our juvenile justice center. I'm going to be talking about, let me get to this slide. I just wanted to include the vision and mission statement. So everybody is fully aware of what our mission is, and we're going to be giving this PowerPoint to everybody after the meeting. So I just wanted to include that so everybody understands what our vision and our mission is for the youth that we're serving in our facility. We want them back in the community. We want them to be excellent kids in the community and school, role models, and everything else. Live a productive life, pursue the jobs or the careers that they want, and learn coping skills and tools so that they don't commit the offenses that they were brought in on. So I just included the vision mission statement for everyone to have. The areas of interest that I'm going to be talking about is our current staffing. Our current hiring practice, it has changed since the last time I was up here in November, our current hiring practice. The programs we have operating right now and could be operating right now if we actually had the staff to operate them. Along with that is we are looking to add another license into our facility with the anticipation of getting extra staff. We want to bring in institutional-based license, which is a huge need for probation in our county. These are kids that don't fit the need for community-based. They don't fit our institutional-based specialized treatment license. So we're actually going to be looking to acquire another license for our kids in our county so they can stay here with their family. And then just talk about, we just had an inspection February 13th through 15th, our annual inspection, and just update you on how that inspection went. So the first thing I want to talk about is our full-time staff. Currently, we have 16 youth care workers are employed as our current staffing. With that, we have 6 full-time supervisors as well. We do not currently have any candidates in the hiring process for a full-time youth care worker. We did have one transmittal that was sent to us by Ms. Chrisman yesterday. So we actually have to set up that interview to find out if that potential staff member would like to be a full-time or part-time. The good thing is the staff member was a former youth care worker that is looking to come back.
Mr. Myers, I'm sorry, what's their total number of positions they have right now available?
Looks like it's 22.
No,
No, they don't have 39.
No, I'm asking what's
Ask
available.
Mr., how many people you have working for you now?
No, not working for them.
The potential 57 youth care worker positions
If you were fully staffed,
would be 57.
That you're budgeted for.
youth care workers.
Yes.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. That's all, I just would help me with this. Thank you.
What did you budget for?
57. So since the last time I was up here in November of 2022, we had 8 staff that left our facility to pursue other jobs. 3 to 4 went to Children Youth. I don't have the exact number who went to Children Youth. 1 went to the police academy, 1 went to be a security officer, and then we had another staff that retired after 22 years of service. Since November of 2022, we had 8 full-time staff that were hired. So it offset the 8 that left, the 8 that came back. We do have 3 current part-time youth care workers. The great thing is there were 4 or 5 more part-timers before this, but they actually converted to full-time. After being in our facility for a couple months, they decided that they wanted to be full-time youth care workers. So that was a great thing, and that was some of the things that we hoped for, was able to get the part-timers in the door to see that the culture has changed since the past and get them to stay, and they have stayed. The 3 that are currently employed, some are in school. Right now, we have 2 that are in school, and we actually have 1 that has a full-time job, but actually is working part-time for us at nights. So it helps to fill that need at night. We have 2 candidates currently in the hiring process. One's a sheriff from New York. He's in the hiring process because we have to wait for his clearances and everything to get into us. And then we have another lady that is in the hiring process as well, and we're waiting for her clearances as well, so we could do a start date for them to start. The one thing I really wanted everybody to understand is our ratios and our staffing needs to operate the facility. So we're governed by the 3800 regulations from DPW or OCYF. OCYF is our licensing body for the juvenile center, which they set the ratios for both detention and treatment beds. So our secure detention ratios are set at 1 staff per 6 residents. So we have 3 units that could house 12 residents on each unit. So if we would fully staff detention, we would each shift, except for night shift, we would need 6 staff for each unit. And our treatment unit, our male and female treatment unit, they're community-based. They're staffed at 1 staff per 8 residents. And we have 12 beds in each of those units as well. Our male community-based license, this is the one we're looking to convert into 12 beds for male community-based and 12 beds for 8 male institutional-based license. Right now it's at 24 beds for our male treatment program. And our specialized treatment programs also has the ratio of 1 to 8 for staff. We do have 12 beds in our female program, and again, 24 beds in our male program, 13 beds in our specialized treatment unit. When they built the new addition on, there was a 13th bed. It was a little bit different than what we have in our other units, but that's the one unit that actually has 13 beds versus 12. So when I was here the last time, we were beginning the process of working with HR and Sherry Chrisman with helping us with our hiring process. I know Mr. Green said if there's any help, he's willing to take it, and if he's wrong, he's wrong. So we worked with Sherry Chrisman, and we talked about our job, how they could cast a bigger net to try to get us more staff in our facility, like she did at the prison. So they have been working with us since November, but they didn't officially start the application for the job until January 13th. On January 13th, they took over Indeed. They started putting the job postings to their network from January 13th, and they have that once Sherry Chrisman gets an applicant, she'll vet them. And once they're vetted, if they're able to have the criteria to move over to our facility, they move over to she goes to the hiring process that is between myself and the Deputy Director of Operations, Mr. Nick Daly. We do an interview, and we try to get the process a lot faster than we were doing it. Because before it was supervisor interview, Mr. Daly and I interview, they go through the MMPI process, and then they would do an interview with the doctor that did the MMPI. And we would have to wait for the clearances and everything else. Ms. Chrisman has taken responsibility to getting the clearances, helping us with getting the transcripts, making sure that they do fill the criteria to work at our job, and then they send it to us. And when she sends it to us, the process has already started. We pay for the FBI clearances, we pay for the state clearances, child abuse clearances. Ms. Chrisman has helped with the process of the physicals, so the staff don't have to come out of pocket for the physicals. We're working on a TB test because our facility, we need a TB test for our staff. So she's actually working on that and finding ways that we could actually get more staffing in here. So Human Resources has set up and maintained our Indeed They posted a position to our county website. They coordinated a job fair for April 13th of this year and utilizes their professional networks to attract more applicants. In addition, they also screen all applicants to ensure they meet the requirements, collect all necessary documents, clearance transcripts, et cetera, and as well as reject or refer applicants to the juvenile center. And then we make the interview and do our final decision. The next slide is from Ms. Chrisman. This is from January 13th, from when they took over to present. There's one missing is the transmittal that was sent down to us yesterday. So there is one applicant on it. So I just want to walk you through some of the things that are on here. On January through February, there was almost 1,500 hits to the job posting. Out of those total number of hits, only 15 applicants to the position. The total number of those 15 that were rejected by Ms. Chrisman because they didn't, we'll tell you why they were rejected, was 10. The number rejected because they didn't meet the requirements were 7. The number rejected because they did not respond to the transcript requests was 2. The number rejected because they withdrew their application was 1. If you see the 1 in parentheses, is actually, this was a test application. So 1 was actually withdrew, but the parentheses 1 was a test that they were running for to make sure that the system was up and running. So with that being said, there was a total number of 5 applicants that passed. The total applicants that were referred were 5. 1 applicant was rejected. The second one was rejected because we were unable to contact them. The first applicant, they applied even before HR helped take over the application, and they failed to show up for interviews. And then when HR took over, they called, they were referred, and when we tried to call them back to set up interview, they never called back. So that's why they were rejected. And then so far, the number of full-time applicants that were hired has been 1. 1 full-time applicant since January 13th. And in March, it doesn't get much better. We don't have any part-times hired right now. Again, we have 2 in the pipe, and we have 1 full-time that we believe is full-time, but it could be part-time that this interview will be set up shortly. So we are struggling to attract staff. And this is with the help of not only our department, but HR, who has a bigger net to cast more applicants and vet more applicants, and it's just not happening. So I thought that was important. I believe it was probably, it wasn't November, it was the very first time I was up here. And I think one of the questions was, collaborating more with our HR department in order to try to get more staff here. And it's just not happening. And Ms. Chrisman is doing an awesome job. She is in touch with our department. She's giving us our transmittals. Any information that we request, she's keeping track of everything, and I think she's doing a great effort. We do have a job fair coming up, and Mr. Daly, who is our Deputy Director of Operations, he's actually has contacts with East Stroudsburg. He actually went with Mr. Garvey to East Stroudsburg in order to, it wasn't a job fair, but it was networking and making connections to try to get more staff. Our rec coordinator, she's now our secretary, but she still has her connections into the community. Ms. Robinson, she still is in contact with Northampton Community College. She's still in contact with Al-Tri-C, and she has set up job fairs in the past with them, and it's just not materializing anything right now. So I thought that was something important to bring up. We currently have 2 programs in operation right now. These numbers have changed since we put this PowerPoint together. We have 2 now detention units currently operating and open. We have 13 residents in our facility in detention. Out of those 13, we have 11 that are from Northampton County and 2 from out of county. Our specialized treatment unit, we currently have 7 residents that are housed in our specialized treatment unit. Shortly will become 8. We do have a Northampton County referral that is actually court-ordered into our program. So we will have 8. Out of that 8 residents that will be in our program, we have 2 residents that are from out of county. Our male and female treatment units, we have to turn down referrals on a daily basis, even to our own county. We had a couple females that needed to be placed in, we didn't have the staff to place them. We didn't have the staff to keep our possible female residents in our program and/or male residents in our community-based program because we don't have the staff to keep that open. If we would open it, then that would mean more mandations for the staff members. Our supervisors are helping out with staffing, administration's helping out with staffing. So right now, that would hurt us and put us back in the spot where we were in October, where a lot of staff were leaving because they're getting burnt out. Right now, the mandations are low with the staffing that we have, and it helps out our facility a lot.
And about the female treatment unit, I want this council to know that was specifically developed by myself at the direction of the court, specifically Judge McFadden at the time, because we were sending all our females across the state or out of state to get treatment. And they said, why are we have the males here, why aren't we doing anything for the females? So we developed that unit. And right now, we can't serve that population right now.
You don't have enough
So,
females employees.
We don't have enough staff. So it's a shame that we have to do that. Okay, so I just wanted to add that in there.
Tara?
I just wanted to ask real quick, what do you do with trans individuals who are part of either community?
Employees or residents?
Residents?
We haven't had that.
Oh, you haven't
well,
had that.
You've
You
had.
haven't had-
We have had
No,
it.
I'm sorry.
So-
He has, yeah, we've had.
We follow PREA protocol when it comes to any trans.
Prison rape.
Yes.
Elimination Act.
So we have policies for that.
So for instance, if somebody identifies female and they were biologically male previous or born, whatever, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I'm tired, so tired right now. But I want to do this question justice because I feel strongly about it, you know, that people need to be taken care of. So if somebody was born male, transitioned female, you're telling me they would be put in a female unit?
In our detention population, we actually have a male-female unit that they're actually housed together.
So they would be, so how does that,
There's male and females in that one housing unit.
There's a co-ed unit.
Co-ed, it's a co-ed.
okay, because I thought you said it follows the prison rape. Which
It does.
Yes.
It's a co-ed pod, but it's allowed by the Department of Public Welfare.
Oh, and
We haven't had any trans identified as trans or a boy or their gender be identified that was considered for treatment.
okay.
But in our detention population, we have had that, and they're housed in a co-ed unit, or if they're identifying as female, they'll be in the female unit. We have the staff that are capable of dealing with that and addressing any needs that they may have. We have therapists also available to address any needs we have. We are currently going to be having our trainings for that coming up, which will be done by dynamic counseling for that specific issue. Because in our specialized treatment unit, you know, we have a lot of kids that have trauma and are going through a lot of different things in their lives and questioning their identity. So we do have therapists that can address those issues as well.
Okay, that's really good, because I had wondered about that, because we want to be mindful of people's situations, because it's a growing problem in trans community that they get excommunicated from their homes, or they are traumatized in other ways, and so.
I think that goes hand in hand with the trauma-informed care. That's something that everybody in the state, any program in the state by 2024 has to be fully trauma-informed. And we are at that point now where staff are trauma-informed, our therapists are certified for trauma-informed care as well. And our therapists, we have 2 master-level therapists. One is about to get licensed, but then everybody else is licensed therapists. So they are there to help us, and we have Dr. Salima that is actually coming in and doing trainings for our staff and administration as well. So we're ahead of the game when it comes to 2024, where 2023 already there. And we want to continue to be at the forefront of this when it comes to impacting kids and knowing that the trauma that they're coming in with, whether it's abuse or identity or anything else, we want to be on the forefront of that. Even screening for trauma, which we have in policy now.
Great.
The one other asterisk that I wanted to note, this is what I was referring to earlier about wanting an institutional-based license. The 24 community beds for boys, we want to reduce that to 12 and get the other 12 beds for an institutional-based license, because there's a high-risk kids out there in Northampton County that are getting sent, whether it's cross-state and possibly secure, that we could actually help them here. And we have began to develop that program for that population as well, with curriculum as well. So last but not least, we had our annual inspection, and it was conducted February 13th to 15th. And it was a physical site inspection along with record reviews. They met with multiple residents, they met with multiple staff, and that is without our administration present. And again, we had a great inspection. Once again, it was highly noted by the residents how safe and secure they feel in this environment. They feel that staff have their needs, meets their needs, and go above and beyond their job duties in order to impact them. And if in any state inspection, when a child gets the opportunity to tell somebody that they believe is in higher position than anybody at the administration, they're going to tell it all. They're going to tell them that the food's not good, they're not getting treated well, they're not getting enough rest, we're not getting extras. And there was 0 complaints by staff or residents about administration, about the staff. They actually really love our food. We do have some great cooks down there, but they really love our food. The technicians, they told us that about the children relaying that the staff created a positive atmosphere. And in order to treat somebody, we were always told by Mr. Green when he was the director, if we're not providing safety, security, structure, and discipline, how can we even begin to treat the kids? Because they don't have that secure environment and they don't have that safe environment, they're not going to open up. And through the state inspection, this is what the kids are telling us, that they have a safe and secure environment and they're able to open up. In detention, we're doing something that hasn't been done in detention programs. We're actually running detention groups with our therapists. So the kids that are there for 30, 40, 60 days are actually having somebody to talk to. And we're having groups with the kids so that they're able to talk about their feelings, what they're going through at the time when they're in detention. How does it feel if they are in the program and they're not getting anything from their, usually out of state. Our probation officers are great with coming and meeting with the kids and interacting with the kids, telling them everything that they need to know. So, but when you come into the juvenile center for the first time or the 10th time, there's trauma that's involved in there as well. So they've been helping out in detention and running detention groups as well. And that's something that hasn't been done in our facility at all, and we just began that this year.
Mr. Billman, Mr. Heckman has a question.
Mr. Billman, I just wanted to ask a question. If I'm not mistaken, because of those CYF's involvement, if a child had a complaint or would make a complaint against staff, you're obligated to get the regional office involved. It's not like it would be handled within the facility. You're in a position where you must inform them. They come down if they feel the need, and they handle the investigation of any complaint.
We're mandated reporters, and we report everything right to Childline. Childline is the one that sends it to the regional office. If it's a complaint that warrants HCSIS, then I complete the HCSIS, or Mr. Daly will complete the HCSIS, and we'll report on ourselves if it has anything to do with our staff. So this is something that, being a mandated reporter, you have to do.
I just wanted to double check, because I know regional, yeah, they were always very tough on whether it was Kids Peace or us or anybody, any place that has kids in residence. It's like, we'll investigate and we'll let you, we're going to talk to the individuals involved, and then they render a decision.
One thing I could say about our youth care workers, they have been great with de-escalation. There's a lot of things that could end in a restraint. Matters how you feel. We had less than 20 restraints all year in detention and treatment. And that is a very low number, especially consider that the number of kids that were repeat kids that got restrained, that's an awesome number. And not any of them reported they were being abused in situations. They didn't report that they were treated differently in the situation. So I think that speaks volume to the staff and how they de-escalate residents and talk to residents or build relationships with residents, and the residents respecting how the staff are treating them and talking to them, giving them an opportunity to talk as well. So the staff have done a tremendous job when it comes to dealing with residents. And we're not getting easy residents either. We have kids that are in there for anywhere from aggravated assault, attempted murder, and the staff treat them just like they would treat their own kids. And it's the level of respect that they're treating their kids with, and that's something that I'm very proud of for our staff.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Billman.
You're welcome. Have a nice evening.
Up and down. Good evening. My name is Matthew Garvey. I'm the Chief Juvenile Probation Officer for Northampton County, and I've been in that position since 2015. I'm going to make this into a full slideshow if everyone comfortable with that. Okay.
You just have to advance it now. Good luck. Yeah.
From current slide. Can I have some technical assistance?
So
Perhaps I ought have been better just to leave well enough alone.
Are you doing video?
No, we're going to move to the last. Okay, so this is the last slide.
What did you want to do?
First slide of my presentation, so back arrow. That's gonna be the best way. Okay, perfect,
Yeah.
thank you. And so, good.
Is that it?
Yep, yes, I do. Thank you very much. There we are. So that's me. I am, I guess, in the cleanup position here, and I hope not to keep you too long. As Mr. Spadoni will certainly note, I've worked with him in the past. I have the ability to make a short story very long. I will not do so tonight. My hope, the goals for this evening, I would like to leave you with a brief history of the juvenile justice system and a review of our alphabet soup of regulatory bodies, and then to answer Commissioner Lott's question about what is creating some of these issues, and then touch upon some of the issues that we have here in Northampton County specifically. These pictures, this one and a few others that I have, came out of a file as we were, I'm sorry? Yeah, so this is a picture of former delinquency. These were file pictures from a delinquent act in 1954. And most people believe that this is what delinquency looks like.
69 years ago, huh?
Yeah, and it was around that time when we built our original juvenile court home. And for those of you who are familiar with the area, it's sat on Ferry Street, on Ferry Street, right where our current facility is. It was attached to what was at one time the Jewish Community Center. Mr. Myers, you're nodding your head in agreement. Perhaps you played basketball there as a kid.
I certainly did.
Yeah. It was built in the 1950s at a time when probation and delinquent youth were viewed a little bit differently. There was a question about incorrigibility and community morals, and they weren't dealing necessarily with the high-end criminals or criminal thinking that we do today. I'll also note, I walked through the doors of that facility in September of 1991, where I began my career as a part-time youth care worker. At that time, the facility had 12 beds, and by the time we were done, or my career was done there in the early 2000s, we were working in the new facility. So it's a brief history of juvenile justice, and again, I don't want to belabor the point. Juvenile court was really born of an idea that we were different. Kids are different and should be treated so. From the evolution of workhouses and putting kids in really difficult circumstances. as you know, as I know here, 1974 was really kind of a significant turn of events. That's the extension of due process rights. While recognized that children are children, they began to have a more formalized criminal process or juvenile court process. In 1978, of course, with the PCCD, there are a federal pass-through entity there who enforce the federal legislation as well as serve as our grant. But despite the formalization of the practice, the juvenile court always and will continue to be focused on the unique needs of juveniles. We do function on the premise that kids are different than adults. We know this from brain science and much of the social science research and evidence-based practices as well. Balancing restorative justice. On the prior slide, you'll have noted that there was in 1995, Act 33 was amended the Juvenile Act. That was former Governor Tom Ridge, who was introducing a Get Tough on Crime legislation. That legislation was aimed at addressing what was anticipated to be a super predator kid. That was based on flawed research, which has subsequently been retracted in that theory. The author of that theory is a professor at the University of Pennsylvania and has since completely distanced himself from that whole concept. This balanced and restorative justice was snuck in by a few very special advocates, as well as Jim Anderson, who was the prior director of the Juvenile Court Judges Commission, which is another one of our oversight bodies. And it really focuses attention on all three of the areas that we're supposed to serve: the community, the youth, and working towards the competency development. Most importantly, and oftentimes left out of the discussion, is the community safety issue. This is the alphabet soup that I spoke of earlier. Beginning at the top of the list and working our way downwards, we begin with all the federal legislation and then their pass-through grants. Our Department of Human Services here in the Commonwealth, not here in the county, the Bureau of Juvenile Justice Services is the entity that provides our state secure treatment beds. JCJC. What I want you to take particular notice of is not just the number of oversight bodies we have, but the varying entities that we work with. It creates almost chaotic environments when we have the legislative branches, the executive branches, and the courts all working to provide oversight. Kind of skipping forward a little bit, our current detention bed crisis. As you can see, we started with 13 beds in our facility, the original one on the Ferry Street. By 1995, we moved to 18 beds to deal with some of the crowding issues we had. One of the past directors, going back some time ago, understood is exactly the thing that Mr. Beaulieu spoke of earlier, is that there was a potential for revenue. So myself and the other full-time staff members were working with overcrowding situations where there were generally between 22 and 24 kids. We were staffed appropriately because we used part-time staffing, but it became clear that we were going to need to address the future build. It was some of your former colleagues, Mr. Grube, I know Mr. Engel was part of it, Judge Moran, and Judge Friedberg were strong advocates for changing the size of the facility and building for our future needs, which also included the treatment unit.
Can I ask a question on this?
Yes, please.
So that 2023 to 2014, is that supposed to be 2013 to 14?
No, in 2023, there are currently only 14 facilities providing secure detention for all 67 counties. No,
I read that wrong.
that's okay. No,
I thought that was like, that's how many beds you serve, 513 and all those issues.
At this time, there are 513 secure beds.
In all 67 counties.
Yes,
In the state.
in the state.
14 cells.
And I will also note that there are only 366 of those that are operational. And that is primarily as a result of the staffing issues that we discussed earlier.
What number did you just say?
366. To suggest that this isn't a full-blown crisis is incorrect. This is a huge issue. My colleagues across the state, I always, for the past 3 or 4 years, have been talking to whomever they can, through the JCJC, to the legislature, to the governor directly. Judge Workman from JCJC wrote a letter to the governor last year asking, pleading for some assistance in this issue. In the past, I've gone out to my state conferences. I sit with the council, the Pennsylvania, the infographic you have is generated by the Pennsylvania Council of Chief Juvenile Probation Officers. It's not been released to the public yet, but because we work with Andy Benner pretty closely, he was kind enough to share it with me. They look at me as if I'm sitting on top of the world, and because we have our own facility. But if it's not staffed properly, I can't use it. And so what happens? In Judge Workman's letter that he sent out to the representatives as well as the governor, he noted that there were 67 instances from 4 months, from June of 21 to October of 21. There were 67 instances where juveniles were turned away due to lack of bed space. And in more than 20% of those cases, those juveniles went home and committed new crimes pending their court date. I'm not trying to blow a dog whistle here and say community protection, but we have a major issue. As you'll see, I have an interview with one of my colleagues who, from Dauphin County, who has recently done it and shared amongst us, that we are having a serious issue where kids are going back into the community, or I know we talked about per diem rates. I have a colleague who sent 2 of her interest of justice clients, whom they're adult people who are charged criminally, juveniles, who are charged criminally but can't be housed at the prison. I know Mr. Green referenced them earlier. They're paying $700 a day to house them in private facilities. So we are paying these outrageous usury fees, not we personally because we have our own facility, but other counties because the providers know it's an issue of supply and demand. And if you're, I know that I heard $1,000 joked about earlier.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
So, are there 2 people there with them? Because I just, like, 2 supervisors for every person who's in a hotel?
So the instance I'm talking about is not related to a hotel. What we have in our provider network are some who have secure detention space. So private providers who run private detention centers. And those bed spaces cost $700 a day.
This is like what we're experiencing with like agency nurses and stuff like that, it feels like. It feels like some of the same thing, is that there's the premium for the private service, and because the counties don't offer the service, they're forced to, I get it, okay.
Yeah, and this is why I beseech you to do whatever you can to keep this facility open. This is the infographic that you all have and I was speaking of. Our treatment, it's not just detention, it's also the providers, the treatment providers themselves. So for instance, I look at my facility just as our detention center as one side, and then the treatment provider, based upon the specific needs of our clients, we try and match them. It's called responsivity. It's part of our juvenile justice system enhancement strategy. I know it's late, I'm not gonna bore you, but we try and identify the 8 criminogenic needs that they have. We're highly detailed scientific process now in the sense that we do YLS surveys, we identify what their specific issues are and provide targeted interventions. In doing so, we try and match them to the specific providers. We've had the luxury of having a provider who does an excellent job of those things, less so now. As we encountered the staffing crisis, we had to move 11 kids. We had to interrupt their treatment process, kids who were pretty far along in their treatment process, and move them because we didn't have enough staff members. It's hardly fair to them or their families. And that's another key element to this issue. If we're sending kids across the state, we're not just inconveniencing the kids, we're inconveniencing the families. Now, I know their acts are delinquent and just as horrific sometimes as their adult counterparts. But we're putting undue financial hardship on these families by having them transport to Pittsburgh. It decreases the connections to their support networks. It also decreases the likelihood that the treatment will really be effective. So having families engaged and active in their treatment was a key component of why the judges and counsel in the past, the commissioners at the time, wanted this here. more recently, and so the treatment issue exists here as well. It should say 11 juveniles. We moved 11 kids. That's my error. Complex cases, mental health cases. We are seeing kids come in with a wider, broader range of complex issues. We cannot find providers for these kinds of kids. Most often they have a behavioral health diagnosis. They are then sent out through our PRTF, the RTF process. And we can't find placements for them here in Pennsylvania because of some of the liability issues, which I will get to. It's a very complex issue, but providers won't take kids because they're gonna mess up their milieus, because they're aggressive, and because there's liability issues involved. These are some of the issues that they face related to legislative changes in the secure treatment crisis. In order to address the Bureau of Juvenile Justice Services shortfall, staffing and retention, they have now contracted with providers in Texas and Indiana and Ohio, which is not a fantastic outcome. So a couple of the things that I want to talk about as it relates to why there are these issues with our providers. I'm hesitant to call it a regulatory issue, but there are some interplays here related to why it occurs. As I mentioned, we have providers who cannot find liability insurance. We have some oversight and regulations right now, the Child Protection Service laws, which we all agree universally should protect our children. But our kids are savvy enough to understand that they weaponize them. If we do not, if an allegation is made, which we've not had many of in the past, and I don't know how many investigations, but I know there are not many because we get notice of them. If an investigation, an allegation is made against a staff member, they get removed from the floor. They can't even be in the facility. The average length of investigation by the Department of Human Services is 31 days. It's down from 45 from the origination in 2014. So it's on average, a provider quantified this that we work with. And it's roughly about $6 million that it costs a provider based upon 1,000 allegations, unfounded allegations of abuse, not the founded ones. 1,000 unfounded allegations of abuse will cost a provider $6 million. They can't stay in business. This is right now, this is their biggest issue, liability. Staffing retention is an issue. I heard earlier about where is the pool, where are the people that are supposed to feed this system of care. I looked into the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. I'd recently heard through contact with professors at East Stroudsburg, some colleagues at Cedar Crest, that we weren't seeing a lot of people moving into the criminal justice world. And why is that? Well, it's partly because of the same issues that our providers are facing. No one wants to deal with the liability of working in this field because there are two pieces of legislation working their way through the House right now. And I think everyone in this room would agree that the victims of childhood sex abuse should have their right and privilege to confront their accusers. Everyone universally agrees with that. One of the unfortunate parts of that is there's no longer liability protections. There are allegations that could be made, potentially, against me when I worked in the facility. There's no documentation to help provide the support. And this is where this interplay that I talked about earlier from all the alphabet soup regulations, it's a great intention, but people will not go into this field because of these potential outcomes. Because I would be personally liable in a civil suit for an allegation that I could not defend. So the workers in the field, not just my probation officers, but the youth care workers, are facing tremendous challenges. The Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education, enrollment in the three primary areas, which are psychology, criminal justice protective services, and social work, are down. They're at 10-year lows. You can look the information up. It's publicly available. I was shocked that I could stumble upon that kind of data. We just don't have enough people coming into the field. I think there's also partly the issues of salaries, but that's above my pay grade. I can't get involved in that. Anything that you can do to help me keep our detention center, minimally the detention center, but the treatment unit would be even better. we just need more people coming in the doors. I apologize if I seem a little bit passionate about this. As I mentioned, I had prepared remarks, but I'm not going to bore you with the details of those, and it's late.
So your question was, your statement is direct contradiction of the driving forces development of juvenile center? Is that what that statement was out there? Your last line on that slide.
Yeah, so look, if we close or we cannot purposely staff this facility, the intent of that facility was to keep people close, right? To keep our kids connected to their communities where they can work to repair the harm, which is part of the fundamental balance and restorative justice practices. And also the vision and foresight that prior commissioners and the court had. We can't staff the facility, we can't fulfill the mission. And so that's why I believe that's a direct contradiction.
Okay. Better understanding. Thank you. Yes, John Paul.
Be more for Mr. Green, but maybe you can answer. Do you happen to know all the steps of pay for your youth care workers? How many steps there are? The lowest I know is 1644.
There's 9 steps.
9 steps.
We start 16, 30, 46, and
What's the highest step? I'm just trying to get a scale here.
goes up to 24.
Okay, so theoretically.
You can't sit there, Mr. Badway, you need to come over and speak. You're not helping us because no one can actually hear what you're
I'm
saying.
sorry, yeah.
So you said the
On
lowest
the
scale,
tube.
the low end of the scale is 1644 an hour and the high end.
1644, and I believe it goes up to about 24 an hour.
And you said there's 9.
There's 9 steps, yes.
So theoretically.
9 steps.
Mr. Spadoni, we have the ability to eliminate positions, and we have the ability to create positions. So could theoretically, we eliminate some of the lower step positions, taking those people and putting them in the next highest available positions, and then create higher positions with higher wage scales above them. Theoretically, taking the negotiations out of it and would just create a new structure. Are we within our legal right to do that?
I'd like to slide a little sideways on this because I want to do a little homework with Mr. Green and the administration and Mary, I can't pronounce her last name, Carboli? The human. Caboli. Caboli.
Oh, Cabal, I was like, who are you talking about?
Because essentially, you know, it seems like, and I'm, Mr. Lott, to speak to what you were saying, and only reason why I feel like I have the ability to speak on this, because I do all the hiring in my company, and I know how government works. It just can't move as fast as the real world sometimes moves. And over the last couple of years, you know, I've never seen inflation and wages become so irrelevant so quickly. And it's hard for governments, especially people like us, who we don't have the finger on the pulse of the people that you hire. So for us to sit here and say, is 1644 enough? Like, you're giving a great case why it's not, but then we have to go month by month until meetings and then resolutions and all these things, negotiations. It's a slow process. Privately in our area, it's like we saw we were losing guys, so we said, hey, we need to up the wages, and we did it immediately. And as soon as we upped wages, people started coming in our doors. It might not be that simple, but I think it is that simple. So if we can't get what we want through the traditional measures, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibilities to do, because I know we've always voted on resolutions coming in, eliminating positions and creating new positions with new scales. So I think it might be a viable route. Maybe we look into that.
I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Heckman.
Thank you. Who's the current juvenile judge? I'm.
Judge Daly.
Judge Daly's in charge.
Judge Daly is the administrative juvenile judge, and he apologized. He was going to be here this evening, but
Yeah.
he's not
No,
feeling well.
I know Judge
Said,
Daly forever.
To let Mr. Myers and this council know he will be here in May.
Oh, he is coming in May?
Yes.
He'll be here.
All right, and you mentioned about the pro degrees, 60 credits hours people have to have. The county community college has, I think, associates in criminal justice. Would that satisfy this?
It would.
And I'm sure you've recruited there or tried to recruit there.
Absolutely. I know that earlier, I'm pointing to Mr. Billman. I know that he said he was there, that he has his community service coordinator, Christy Robinson, working on it as well.
Really?
I know that we also have had, what he was referencing was we would go to career fairs.
Yeah.
And present to criminal justice. We have a very good relationship with East Stroudsburg. I think it's a wonderful idea. I know I heard earlier questions about tuition reimbursement. I would go so far as to suggest the potential for scholarships, connecting with high school seniors and offering scholarships to get through the criminal justice degree. You know, as an administrator, I hate when people come to me with problems they don't have solutions to. That's one of them. I know that the provider world is, I believe Commissioner Gofredo said that, you know, you're able to pivot more quickly to pay higher salaries. Government doesn't move like that, as you rightly pointed out. But my private provider network is hamstrung by the rate methodology task force. The rates are set by the state, so they're not even able to pivot that quickly in the provider world. So we see this issue time and time and time and time again, and it's, my fear is that our provider network will eventually collapse, and without our facility, the youth of Northampton County is going to run rampant.
Well, and to that point, if I may finish, everybody there is adjudicated delinquent, correct? Because that's still the dividing line. Correct. All right. Yeah, I mean, I remember, and I know the judges have always been pushing this. This goes back further than I want to report to these people. But that, in fact, when we'd stand in front of a judge, he'd be angry if you said, we're going to take this child to George Junior Republic. I don't know if they're still in operation, but they were on the other side of the state. And I had to drive out a couple kids. And they'd get upset because we didn't have a place closer, but because we couldn't handle them. And that's always been a big thing, is we want treatment nearby for the kids. And so I understand what you meant when you said that, and I assume that's still the position of probably Judge Daly and the courts.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it's a complicated issue, like with children and youth. Children and youth age, we can't keep, I don't know, you know, I hear what you're saying. I don't know what we have to look at how we do things in the county with our eyes on 2023. I know, and I have to be careful, you know, I think of, there was a time we had waiting lists of people wanting to work for the county. I mean, people would complain, but a few decades back going, I haven't heard anything. And you talk to someone and say, well, we got like 30 people applied for that position. You could be picky, but now things have changed. And I think, you know, we all have to put our heads together with the administration and figure it out.
I would appreciate
But
that.
that's it. Thanks.
You can continue, please.
Certainly. Mr. Green asked me to go once again review this slide with you. You have the handout. As it indicates, the distance that most frequently is traveled is about 2 hours. That occurs at any time of night or day. Most of my colleagues are traveling themselves. Many of the counties are armed and serve as their own transportation. We do not, which would require sheriff's transport. Again, I mentioned the negative impacts on families and sending their kids away. More than half can't meet their daily needs. I think I mentioned earlier that when my colleagues look at me, they think I'm in a perfect situation, and for years they were giving me the hairy eyeball at meetings because we had unlimited access to detention beds. But what another compounding factor, I mentioned previously, the alphabet soup of regulations and legislative changes. There's a federal change, the interest of justice hearings. We can no longer house juveniles in prison. That's a result of a federal change, and it kind of works its way downward to the local level. And so essentially what that means is anyone who's charged criminally as an adult, though a juvenile, can't go to jail. And that's the cost I mentioned earlier. And those are putting additional strains on what is already an exacerbated situation. So
What's the cost? Because you had mentioned that before. For those situations, astronomical.
yes. So
You want to give council that number that you hit me with yesterday?
absolutely, sure. It's $751 a day. And I have a colleague who has 2 juveniles in a facility that perhaps Mr. Heckman transported to some time ago that has private detention beds, and the bill was $43,000 for 2
month.
juveniles.
Per month.
For 2 juveniles.
For 2 juveniles.
You don't even want to know about mental health, and that's some of the.
$43,000 per month for 2 people.
That's why I said, we don't have.
Plus you have a sheriff, you have an officer with him on top of that.
That's what I'm saying. If we don't have our center, we're gonna pay a lot more It's an Italian contribution right now. I guarantee you.
Are you wrapping up your,
The numbers are there.
are you wrapping up your presentation?
I'm,
He's wrapping up.
I could go all night on this issue, and I am truly passionate
As you can
about what I
see,
do.
my council's fading
I know,
rapidly.
it would be, and I did mention that I was short story long. I'm going to close the presentation, but I want to show you an interview that one of my close friends and colleagues conducted recently. The gentleman you'll see is Chad Libby. He is the Chief Juvenile Probation Officer in Dauphin County. Chad oversees both the adult and juvenile departments there. So I think I can do this.
One special report,
children will be
Arlise
proud.
Person takes you on one former resident's journey and what some say is the biggest issue causing this crisis.
It took a lot more from me than what I gained from it.
Santos Robles was 12 years old the first time he went into a Pennsylvania detention center, and it wouldn't be the last.
I was one in Philly, I was in one in Pittsburgh, was the furthest. The one in Pittsburgh, that was probably the toughest one for me because my family, couldn't visit very often from there.
After spending years, hours away from his family in Lebanon, Robles looks back to the lasting impact it had on him.
I lost connections with my brother and sister. We don't have a bond to this day. Any friends that I had, by the time I came back, they were all strangers. I wasn't close to them anymore.
A reality not unique to Robles. Officials tell us that probation officers in 76% of Pennsylvania counties are driving between 1 and 2 hours one way to the nearest detention center, with 22% driving 3 to 4 hours. The organization Youth Advocate Programs has worked with children who have been moved away from their communities.
If an individual is far away from home, families with economic needs, just the ability to go and visit and sustain those connections while the youth is in placement is going to be a huge challenge for them.
But why are kids being sent so far from their families?
We don't need to build detention facilities. We have the infrastructure already. We have enough beds out there that are licensed. We don't have to staff to man them.
Chadwick Libby, Director of Probation Services in Dauphin County, says over the last 3 years,
We see a lack of interest, especially with the younger generation, to pursue this line of work.
a staffing crisis creating a snowball effect, the lack of employees forcing a lack of available beds. According to Libby, of the 513 licensed detention center beds in PA, only 366 are operational, which in turn leaves those currently in the industry stretched thin.
I know some of my colleagues are spending 40-50% of their day with trying to secure a detention bed. Almost 66% of these counties are traveling anywhere from 2 to 4 hours to place a youth.
That affected me to this day. I still struggle with not having any connections. I don't feel connected to anybody in my family.
In some cases, probation officers can't find an open bed and are then left to make some tough decisions.
You may have a youth in there for serious charge, but may have a new referral that's even more serious, and like, how do we deal with population management? So you're always triaging.
The snowball effect continues.
In the last 2 years, the youth referred to us by the city alone, 1 out of every 3 youth is for a gun charge.
Libby says alternatives such as GPS trackers aren't always effective.
And some of these kids are cutting those bracelets off in 15 minutes and they're right back at it.
Now, with so much stemming from a staffing crisis, how does the state fix this?
I look back to when we were a shortage of math and science teachers. There was a lot of incentives. We're hoping that a large investment will be put into the workforce in the area of community corrections across the board.
Libby says a regionalized approach is a potential solution, meaning the farthest option for kids would just be an hour-long drive from their families.
This is going to require the governor, this is going to require our General Assembly to really look at strategies to improve this.
Wherever the answer may lie, Robles says family support is key.
Sometimes placement is kind of a necessary evil, but keeping the connections with home is the most important thing.
For those interested in helping children within the system, both Libby and Youth Advocate programs say mentoring can be just as beneficial as entering a full career within corrections. For more information about local opportunities to mentor, you can visit our website. For CBS 21 News, I'm Elise Person.
Chad is the president of the Chief Juvenile Probation Officers Association here in Commonwealth. I welcome you to, and can provide you links if you'd like, to not only that site, but also the Juvenile Court Judges Commission's website. Their current director, Bob Tomasini, and past directors have been very engaged at the state level in advancing these interests. I just want to leave you with one piece of information. 2 years ago, there was a juvenile justice task force. And when I was discussing this with the judge, I was a little bit offended by some of the things that came out of the task force, because it really painted a system that we've been working on improving for the past decade. And it painted it in kind of a negative light. There are some great suggestions in the task force report. I want to be very clear about that. But I'd heard that some of the authors of the report were being very critical of our agency, the Chief Juvenile Probation Officers, directly. In particular, the legislation, our response to some of the legislation, which hit even more closely to home, because I'm the chair of the legislative committee for the Chief Juvenile Probation Officers. And our response to some of the legislation was based on what our concerns were. So I contacted Steve Bishop. Steve Bishop is a driving force in the Pew Charitable Trust Foundation. He's a great guy. He's a Dauphin County guy. I knew him through grad school. I knew him in his capacity here with Pew. He and I had a long conversation, almost 2 hours, about 3 weeks ago. I was trying to gain perspective on what it was that he saw that I didn't, that I needed to make changes in our system. And when I described for him the program that we run here, this very forward-leaning, progressive agency was saying, this is exactly what we need to do. So a report was generated, taken into the legislature to change what we do. And this same agency is looking at what we do here, saying, this is a national model. This should be done everywhere. We can't let this fail. We have to do whatever is necessary to provide the staff with whatever salaries they can to work on staffing and retention, salaries and retention, time and time and time again.
Ms. Var, you have there?
I would like all of you to give your presentation to Aileen so that we could have it. It's a lot to absorb. It's a lot of numbers, and I think it bears reflection later. Well, does anyone know, of all four of you, what was in the governor's budget for this area? No increase?
No increase.
Yeah, I have not reviewed the governor's budget. I can't answer that
Because
question.
I've heard about other things, but I know mental health, he did ask for 6 million or more. He wanted to raise it. But if you could get that for us as well, what his ask is, or if there's zero, what we should be asking for, I think that's important as well.
Our general membership meeting begins tomorrow afternoon with the provider committee, and then within full session on Friday. I can have that information for you by next week.
That'd be great if you could just get that, because again, when we have to speak to others, like it's something for us to ponder later, but if we have to go and make the ask, we need to know from the source what we're asking for, so that would be very helpful.
In addition to the PowerPoint, I'd be happy to provide the speech I prepared. Probably should have stuck to it. It would have been shorter, but.
Just email it.
No, we already know what it is. We don't disagree.
Anybody else have any questions?
Janicia has the PowerPoint. She has everything we presented today.
Beautiful,
And
thank you.
her and Eileen are gonna send it to you guys.
All right, the only suggestion we can have before we adjourn here is, we heard a lot,
Yes.
but the most important thing we've heard is, and we've heard it for 14 months, is we got to do better with money. So that's something we're going to have to ponder, and we got to figure out a way that we can get more money into the hands of this, because $42,000 a day scares the hell out of me. A month.
That's the tip of the iceberg. That's just two of them.
That's two people.
If you have we have a specialized treatment unit, okay? Where we treat sex offenders. If you send them out, what's the going rate for that, Badway? For sex offenders?
More than that, $500 a day.
$400, $500 a day. We have 12 beds, and right now, we have 9 kids in there right now. So send those 9 kids out right now, $400 a day.
$500 a day, yeah. $4,500.
Per kid.
36.
Per kid.
3,600 a week.
So these are the numbers we're looking at. All right, so.
We got to come up with money.
I appreciate everything you guys can do for us.
We'll meet again in May. I appreciate it.
And Mr. Spadoni, I'm going to be calling you for your legal opinion, because I know you have some work.
Tomorrow to set up a meeting, maybe we can talk.
Yes, and then I'll have Judge Daly there as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and probably.
With that said, if we don't have any more questions, I thank you. Motion to adjourn. Thank you so much for being here, gentlemen.